Am I the asshole for telling my niece that my husband is dead? My husband died last year. We have two beautiful children that are now 5 and 8. When he died, my sister made the trip up to the funeral. She lives in a different state, her husband stayed home with their kid. I didn't think that was weird. Fast forward a year and my sister decided to visit me, with kid and husband in tow. Her daughter is now 7. At first it went well, the kids were playing. Then my niece asked me when my husband would be back. I was taken off guard and she says, from his business trip. Some prying makes me realize. My sister never told her he died. Now, in other circumstances, I would have let it go. But my kids are still adjusting to daddy being gone. We're all in therapy. I didn't want them to hear this and think he was coming back. So, I sat my niece down and explained my husband died. When she asked why, I kept it simple and said he was sick. She was fine and didn't seem upset. Well, my sister is pissed. She said that's her daughter and she doesn't understand death. I said I have a kid younger and she gets it. She told me that I should have asked her first. I said she should have told me she was advertising my husband as alive. Brother-in-law is torn between us. Am I the asshole? Your sister is the asshole here. If she thinks a 7-year-old can't handle the concept of death, what does she think you've been telling your own children? And how did she think that was going to make your children feel when their cousin is acting like their dad is just away on a trip?
Not the asshole. 7 is old enough to understand death. How did your sister not expect your niece to ask or comment anything, when they were visiting you and your kids? How did your sister not tell you before? I'm really sorry for your loss, Op. But you're by no means the asshole here.
Not the asshole. It's incredibly insensitive and inappropriate of your sister to be telling your niece he's alive. I'm sorry for your loss. Not the asshole. You were put on the spot and had to respond somehow, and kindly explaining the truth is probably the best choice to make. I can't even imagine how long your sister was planning to lie to her daughter. How many family visits would pass before she told the truth?
Not the asshole. Children don't need to be protected from the idea of death, especially when a family member dies. It just needs to be presented in an age-appropriate manner, which it sounds like you did. In general, the big talks, about big subjects like this, should be left to the parents. But this wasn't an abstract discussion. You had discovered that your sister had flat out lied to her child about your husband's death. And that needed fixing before, as you rightly noted, your niece said something that could have really hurt your children. If your sister was so determined to avoid discussing your husband's death with her child, she absolutely should have warned you that your niece believed he was away on a trip. I'm sorry for your loss.
Not the asshole. Some people are replying no assholes here or everyone sucks here and they're coming from a place of you're interfering with her parenting. However, that's not the issue here. If the cousins got together and started talking about when your husband was coming home, that could have seriously harmed your children. If your sister didn't want them to know, she had a duty to keep her children away until they, in her opinion, could understand.
Not the asshole. Your sister is vastly underestimating what children can handle. How did she expect this wouldn't come out when the kids played together?
Not the asshole. Your sister is doing the exact opposite of what she thinks she's trying to do. I can only imagine the harm that she's causing her daughter and could cause to your kids.
Not the asshole. Your kids are the priority in this situation. Also, has the kid never seen a Disney movie? There are a lot of dead parents in them. Flash forward 5 years and your niece will be freaking out when she starts bleeding and your sister hasn't told her about menstruation.
Not the asshole, and I'm sorry for your loss. Unfortunately, death is a part of life and at 7 years old, she is old enough to process that. I think it was incredibly insensitive of your sister to not tell her the truth before the visit, knowing that she may ask you or your children where her uncle is.
Not the asshole. Wow, can you imagine the damage that kid would do to your other kids if they had told them their father was still alive? Incredibly irresponsible of your sister to do that and especially not ever mention it.
Not the asshole. Your sister should have had that conversation prior to coming to your house. It's ridiculous to expect you to lie to your niece and pretend he was coming home. She absolutely should have warned you that your niece thinks he's on a business trip, and she didn't, so in my opinion it's on her, and she's being 100,000% insensitive.
Not the asshole. Man, no one really ever is prepared for death. It hurts, but it's far better for kids to know the truth immediately than later. Seriously, one of my classmates' family had a distant aunt act as their deceased grandmother, and they no longer trust their family when it comes to death.
Not the asshole. Your sister created the situation and you had to deal with it in the moment. Your sister had a year to tell her kid about their uncle dying and didn't. And then she did nothing to prevent the situation, knowing full well it would come up at some point if they were visiting in person. What did she expect? That you and your kids would go along pretending everything was fine? That you and your kids would never talk about their dad for the whole visit? Your sister was completely insensitive to your family's needs. And by 7, most kids already know something of death, even if it hasn't yet happened to someone they know.
Not the asshole at all. I cannot imagine how it would have felt had she asked your daughters when their dad was coming home from his business trip instead of you. I don't want to even imagine what their reaction would be.
Not the asshole. There was absolutely no way it would have been responsible for you to let your niece tell your kids he was on a business trip. Your responsibility is to your own kids. Also, if your sister really thinks she is in the right, why didn't she tell you what she told your niece? At least then you could have discussed a way to manage that. Your sister lied and just hoped it wouldn't come up. In reality, it isn't about your niece not being able to handle knowing someone died. This is about your sister being uncomfortable having that conversation with her child. She is blaming you for that discomfort when the culprit is reality and she needs to deal with it. Edit. Typo.
Not the asshole. I'm a widow too. It sucks that we're in this position. Having someone lie about the situation makes it harder for all involved. Keeping it honest and developmentally appropriate is all you need, and I'm sure you've got that under control. You're doing an amazing job.
Not the asshole. You clarified the death of your husband to your niece. She was fine. If anything, she might be weirded out by the idea that her mother had been lying to her all this time. That's probably more traumatic.
NTA. Your sister should have, at a minimum, told you what she told your niece. Kids definitely can understand death, and at a much younger age than 7. Maybe you should have run the conversation past your sister first, but that's just a maybe. You and your kids have the right to try to heal, and that includes having this conversation with your niece to protect your children from false hope.
Not the asshole. When I was 7, my best friend didn't return to school after spring vacation. I'd wondered where she was, and the teacher told the class she'd gone away for a long trip. I expected she'd come back. When school started back up in the fall and she still wasn't there, I asked my new teacher where she was. That teacher told me her brain was sick, and that she'd died. She'd had a brain tumor and didn't survive, and I wish I'd known that straight off and not spent all summer expecting to see her again. I could have handled it. Not the asshole. Kids don't need to be mollycoddled and lied to about death. We are all so cushioned from life's realities these days.
Not the asshole. Your sister was way inappropriate.
In cases like this, the person who has the risk of the most harm gets the most consideration. I absolutely think that having niece tell your kids, when is your dad coming home? I want him to do X with us, like last time, wasn't that fun? Or say something thoughtless about having her own father would absolutely cause your children great harm, thinking their father might return. And #X200B. The harm to your niece is there, but far less than that of your kids. And #X200B. Your sister was remiss in not explaining the situation to her child in her way, and because she didn't, she lost the right to be the only person allowed to explain things to her child. Brother-in-law is an asshole as well for allowing this. And #X200B. Not the asshole.
Not the asshole at all. I'm sorry for your loss. Your sister is going to do more damage than good with a parenting strategy like that.
NTA. Yes. Death is horrible, and no kids or anyone is really ready to deal with it. However, that is not reality. Regardless of how small a kid is, when a death in a family happened, the family should, to the best of their ability, explain it to the kid.
Not the asshole. Your sister didn't think that business trip facade through. How long was she going to keep that up?
Not the asshole. Her daughter is at the appropriate age to understand death. I'm so sorry for your loss. You are not the asshole. Your sister may be trying to shield your niece from reality, but it shouldn't be happening in your own home and in front of your children. Your niece is old enough to be told the truth.
Not the asshole. Trying to hide the reality of the world from children doesn't work. They're smarter and more observant than your sister thinks. The only outcome of your sister's approach to parenting is that her kid doesn't trust her when she learns the truth.
Not the asshole. Everyone saying you should have included the parents, but it was a conversation. Are you supposed to stop everything and get them? They should have let you know the context they gave her, or been honest with her from the start. Sorry for your loss.
Not the asshole.
Not the asshole. Your sister has officially broken with reality if she thinks that her child doesn't know what death is.
Holy moly. Not the asshole. I am so sorry for your loss. I don't understand your sister's reasoning to lie to her daughter. When is the acceptable time to tell her about her uncle's death? When she's an adult. As horrible as it is, death is a part of reality and we can't shelter our children from it. A 7-year-old is definitely of an age to explain the situation and have them understand. How hurtful to you as a grieving widow to have that brought to your attention. What if your niece had asked your child that question? Of course they'd be like, my dad is dead. Your sister is tar. Again, I am sorry for your loss.
It was your husband. You get to tell people that he passed away if you so choose.
Not the asshole. Children are young, not idiots. It doesn't make any sense to lie your niece about it. And your sister should know that children talk and should have thought about what would have happened if your niece had said something to your children. I'm sorry for your loss.
Not the asshole. You were protecting your already hurting children and being as kind as you could to your niece. That was unfair of your sister to bring her there without informing you of her lack of knowledge. You have my sympathies.
Not the asshole. I'm sorry for your loss and I get why you told your niece the truth, but in hindsight, you probably should have spoken to your sister first to get her on board before talking to your niece about death. You're right. Your sister should have told her daughter what happened, as her ignorance of his death is not something you and your children should be dealing with whilst you are grieving. Your sister does not get to bring a child into your home, who would, by no fault of her own, traumatize your grieving children. She and her child are the lowest priority. Her. Not the asshole. What a freaking moron.
NTA, my children are 4 and get it.
Not the asshole. At 7, children understand the concept of death. Your sister chose a lazy path. What makes her a huge asshole is that instead of apologizing to you, she chose to attack you as if you'd done something inappropriate. She knew her daughter thinks your husband is alive and she let her around you and your kids without a warning. Very insensitive to everybody.
Not the asshole. Your sister was an asshole to you for not warning you before she brought that poor deluded kid into your home, and a useless parent to boot.
Not the asshole. Your sister is such asshole for expecting you to lie about your husband's death. This is your life. You're living with this loss. How dare she?
You're obviously not the asshole.
Not the asshole. The kid is old enough to have a conversation about death. They probably see bugs or small animal die anyways. Truth is usually better than keeping up a lie and will not cause awkward future moments when she will ask about her uncle. An unfortunate opportunity for her to learn about death and how to deal with it early on so she can learn to cope with it when future loved ones passes away, whether it's another person or a pet.
Not the asshole. How has the kid made to age 7 without understanding death? Why did this person bring the kid to a household where one person died if she doesn't want her daughter to know about death?
Not the asshole. Your sister is definitely an asshole for not taking the time to explain what death is and why her daughter's uncle wouldn't be around anymore. She's also the asshole for not giving you a heads up and not thinking about how her handling of the situation would affect not only your but also your children as well. Her handling was immature at best.
Not the asshole at all. What did your sister think was going to happen if your niece asked your kids where their dad was? Unreal.
Not the asshole. How incredibly irresponsible of her to lie and then to not even warn you that she lied. If she was so worried that you would reveal the truth without her permission, then you'd think she'd give you a heads up. She's definitely the asshole and her parenting needs some serious work.
Not the asshole. 7 is old enough to understand death and old enough to understand mommy lied about someone dying for a year. I'm so sorry for your loss.
Not the asshole. My 3 and 4-year-olds know about death.